Mayor, on advice of the city attorney, I'm going to do a motion for reconsideration before the consent agenda to do a vote for reconsideration of the other minutes item, other business item from our December 7th meeting, which is the item on the agenda on December 7th meeting, and other business was approving the acceptance of a one-time payment of $272,000 to American Tower for a permanent easement on a cell phone tower located in the city. So I'd like to make that motion for reconsideration.
Now we have a motion to reconsider the vote from the last board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Is there any discussion?
I have just a question. Certainly it's within your right to do that and respect that right. Is there new compelling information or documentation or something that we need to be aware of prior to this? I mean,
the information that I've gained since the vote is one of the disposition of the funding, which was originally intended to go into the general fund, and now it is targeted, and it has to go into the water fund. And on review of the original lease that we had, which was not presented, or at least I didn't have at the time of the board meeting we voted, presents pretty favorable conditions. So I'm not necessarily opposed to any final outcome, but I just think we need to re-vote on this and reconsider it later.
This is a point of clarification. In speaking with Russell this afternoon, the issue is a monopole on Spring Ridge. The money was put in water fund. It actually could go anywhere. So the issue about where it goes is a moot point based on the board's direction, which I assume at some point in the past sent it to the water fund. At this point, this board could move that money into the general, into a reserve fund or anywhere else it wanted to. So just to make a clarification of that. Any other comments or questions?
just to clarify, is there, I'm not sure that I got my question answered. Is there something that's compelling that this board hasn't already addressed? And if so, my comments are toward Alderman Ellis. He's the one who made the
what's
motion.
compelling is we can take a one-time payment, and there were some other options presented, but the current lease currently has us in for a number of years and has that entity locked in, with the potential of going out more years than that. And I think we need to relook at the whole thing and make sure we're clearly identify what towers we got, and then bring it up for a vote at another time.
Well, I'm going to respect your right to offer a vote to reconsider, but I have serious questions about where we're going with this.
By making a motion to reconsider, that brings the issue up that you're talking about immediately. You want to remove you want to remove item A and vote on item B through T, and then do it all at the end, as we had talked about last night. If you want to go ahead and talk about the whole issue.
Yeah, the city attorney recommended that we do it before the consent agenda, so that's why I'm bringing it up now.
So we will then from there move into the discussion on the whole issue.
I'm not sure where you're going with that. I'm having a hard time following what you're asking.
Are you asking that the minutes be removed from the vote? Because that's what item A is the entire minutes. And you spoke of the minutes of the meeting. So are you asking that the minutes be removed and voted on separately? Or are you asking, and that's where I'm kind of following.
I'm asking for a motion for reconsideration of the other business item before we do the consent agenda for this.
Okay, so that means that we will then move, if this passes, we will then move into a discussion on that item itself at this point. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, since it's not on the agenda.
Okay, I was going to follow up on Alderman Ellis's comments about what new information was out there. We had a general discussion of this at the last work session.
Tell you, hold on to that.
Or is that a discussion?
Yeah,
on the
that's a discussion.
Okay,
let's go ahead and vote on whether or not we're going to go through all that. So it's not on the agenda, so we'll do a voice vote. So all in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed to the motion?
Nay.
So we've got a, sounds to me like a tie vote here going on. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Alderwoman Garrett.
Are you voting
Um,
for, are you voting for the,
She's voting for your motion.
for the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Barnett.
No.
Alderman Brett.
Nay.
Alderwoman Cossack.
Yes.
Alderman Cash.
Yes.
Okay, at this point, I recognize Alderman Martin.
Or, so what is in front of us now is whether to approve the sale
Yes.
of it. Okay. At the work session that we had in December, we had a general discussion of this, and at that time, we were just introduced it to us, and it was left that we would consider that. It would not be at the board meeting on the next day. And then about 11 o'clock the next morning, got an email that said it would be placed on the agenda in the as other business, and it was discussed generally at the meeting there too. It was, at the work session, it was told that we had three options, and that the options were to do, that the only option was to sell it and to take a lump sum payment immediately, or to take a payment over a 5-year period of time, or a payment over a 10-year period of time. We did not see the request, or they were not given to us. It was on a screen in the meeting room that we did not have time to look at carefully. But we did not have a copy of the present lease agreement in it. Actually, there were 5 options, not 3 options, as we found out later by getting full information on it. We could continue with the lease as it is now, which runs through 2036. The second option was an extension of the lease for another 21 years to 2057, or an option to sell it for a lump sum immediate payment, or sell it for payment with payments over 5 years, or sell it with payments over a 10-year period of time. So there are actually 5 options that we could have considered and not 3. And again, we just didn't have the lease agreement or the proposals that we could look at and study and be careful and know what we were doing with it. I also have a concern that we are selling permanently an easement. Now, these cell towers are just cash cows. I think that they are, that it's just a nice source of income. And again, the cell tower folks wanted to extend it, the lease from 2036 to 2057, and I think there's a long-term benefit by keeping that stream of income coming. With the proposal that they gave us, once we had a chance to look at the lease, we sold it for essentially between $100,000 and $130,000 less than what we would have received from payments under the lease that we have. If we had chosen the option to extend the lease up through 2057, then I think we discounted the value of that by somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 on it. And again, I think that continuing the lease is much more beneficial than trying to do a cash out at fire sale prices. I also have some concerns that that we were taking a proposal from the present leaseholder. If we were leasing property out, I'm not sure whether the law would require us to take bids on it so that we could get some sort of idea of what the value of it is. And even if the law didn't require us to take bids, I think it would have been a prudent thing to do to offer, to say we're looking at selling a permanent easement on the cell towers and to see what the market would provide. Again, we flew blind into this without any documentation, without comfort on what this was worth, and I think it just needs to be reconsidered, and certainly we can deny the acceptance of their offer to buy it out tonight, and then if we want to look at it further, make some negotiations with them, put it out for public bid, things like that, we could certainly consider that at a later time. But again, I think we sold it at fire sale prices without full information.
Any other comments?
No.
Go ahead. Well, I mean, Let me go ahead and just talk about this a little bit. Let me begin by saying that when we have a work session, I make every effort to put things on an agenda so that the board can be aware and be prepared. Last night, Mr. Martin brought this up out of the blue, and I wasn't prepared to speak on it. A little bit better prepared tonight to give you some more information that you can or cannot discount as you choose. Our current contract, which is in the last year of its second 5-year option, pays us $1,369 a month. Now, what they offered initially was to come back. This was a negotiation that was going on. It wasn't 5 different choices. This was a negotiation, and it was sent to me, and they wanted to lower that to $1,090 a month and pay it to $2,057. So we would actually be taking less money per month for a longer period of time. And as this statement and as the contract that they initially sent said, either party can stop this at any time they choose. I didn't think that was a good idea. So I countered back. Or they offered a lump sum of $228,000. So I countered back with them, and they came back and they said, okay, we'll take a lump sum, we'll pay you a lump sum of $264,000, and we'll have a 60-month payment of installments of $5,318, or monthly payments for 120 months of $392. Can you put this up? I'm sorry, I thought this was already up on the board there. Okay. Again, I said, no, there's no guarantee. We can take the one lump sum payment, but I still thought that was too less, so I countered back with $306,000. Again, this is all negotiations. This is the prerogative of the mayor. We've had these discussions before about whose responsibility it is to do what. And one of the mayor's responsibilities is that of negotiations. So they countered back the last time with they added $100 to the 60-month on the monthly payment and $100 to the 120-month payment, or $272,000 on a lump sum payment. And if you'll recall, scroll down once more. This was what I brought to y'all as the document to consider. And you can see the word contractually guaranteed, which it hasn't been on any document, including the one that we have right now. In my mind, as I told you, I don't care what method or which way you go. What I told you was you can take the one lump sum at $272,000, or you can take the 60-month installments, or you can take the 120-month installments. Now, this is the only guaranteed money there is. This is it. This is the only guaranteed money. So the inference that there are 3 or 4, whatever other number you've come up with in this matter that were available to us that weren't given to you was simply because I rejected them because I didn't feel like they were in the best interest of the city. Any financial planner will tell you, and this is, like I said, it didn't bother me which way your board went, but in the discussions during the work session, it seemed that 6 of them all said, I think we ought to take the lump sum. And I didn't disagree with that. Any financial planner will tell you that you should always take the lump sum if you have a chance, because the time value of money is greater with a lump sum if you get it in on the front end. The inference that there was some deal in the initial offer, which would have run till 2057, again, less money per month with no guarantee. So they could have ended that with 90 days notice to us. So I really I disagree with you on the method here. My thought is you take the money up front, but you don't renegotiate the contract that you already don't have a guarantee with, to accept a contract that you don't have a guarantee with, no matter how attractive it may sound in 37 years. whether or not they're still using the pole or not. That was my thinking, and that's what I explained to the board. Now, you can't go out and just bid this because the tower is already, there's only one occupant on the tower. So their options to leave are as viable as any could possibly be at any time. Mr. Attorney, you got anything you'd like to add?
No, sir. I mean, as a point of clarification, the contract says their option to not renew the contract would come at the end of the current term in effect. So basically, every 5-year renewal, they have to be able to give 90 days notice. But you're correct in that they could abandon that at any time, and they have offered these as contractual guarantees. Would be the only clarification I'd make to that, unless you had something further you want.
No, I don't. City Clerk, have you got any comments? You're the city's money man.
I mean, I was asked at the last meeting, what my recommendation would be, and I think it would be a good enough recommendation to go ahead and take the one-time fee.
In my opinion, negotiating a guaranteed payment, whether you take it on a one-time fee or you take it over 5 years or 10 years, but it's guaranteed, is a lot better deal than what we have now, and it's a lot better deal than what they were offering in their negotiations earlier. Like I say, you just, I guess, a different way of how we look at money, but that's what I believe to be the best way to go. Mr. Cash.
Yeah, I just like to share my perspective on this, and I'm not saying that my perspective is right. I'm not saying my perspective is wrong. I'm just saying it's my perspective and how I interpreted the information that was put in front of us. And the first thing I would do is draw everyone's attention to the letter dated October 31st that was written to our attorney. And specifically the sentence that's in the first paragraph that says, and I quote, "We are in a very competitive space and modifications to your lease are needed in order for ATC to maintain a long-term marketable presence at this location." When I read that, that indicates to me that there's a dissatisfaction or there's concern with the terms of the current lease. So in looking at the current lease, and I'm not going to beat this horse to death because council's already, and the mayor's already made this point, the reference that Alderman Martin made to the lease expiration date of 2057 is, from my perspective, not necessarily an accurate depiction of the contract, because that contract can be vacated based on the terms within the contract. That contract, we could lose 15 years of that contract if ATC decided that they didn't want to re-up. So as we were discussing this, it was clear that there was a change that was going to need to be made, that staying within the original contract was not going to be something that was acceptable, whether we wanted that or not. So with that being the case, I looked at it as being an opportunity or potential opportunity for us to lose 15 years of revenue based on the current contract. Everything that's on that screen was on the screen at our work session. I asked the question earlier, what's the compelling information? And I still don't see anything new and compelling. We have addressed this. The intent, from where I sat, the intent of the board, after discussing these options, and the mayor, and all due respect to the mayor, you haven't said anything new tonight either. This is the same thing. This is the same thing we talked about weeks ago. And the intent of the board that during our work session was to accept the $272,000 lump sum payment. When we left that work session, it was clear in my mind, maybe it wasn't clear in anybody else's mind, that this action was going to be voted on. And that regardless of what we think, and again, to what the mayor said, the only guarantee that we have would be based on the last document that was put in front of us, and that is a 5-year or a 10-year contract. The discussion of a contract from 2000 and whatever it was, 36 or 2057, to me is not, we're betting the odds that the contract would last that long, especially knowing that that the company has an out should they want to get out of that contract. So to me, that's not even a relevant issue. To me, the relevant issue was what we've already discussed, 272,000 or option 2 or 3 of the last document. So I'm still waiting for the compelling information. I'm waiting for what the change in perspective.
Go ahead, Spirit.
Just a couple of things. One, I think I know enough about business, not a whole lot about business, but enough about business to know that these companies aren't going to offer a buyout like this unless it's in their best interest to do that. So I think you have to start with the assumption that it's in their best interest to get this buyout, not necessarily in our best interest to do that. The second point I want to make is that anytime a board has to make a decision involving this amount of money, this is over $250,000, and anytime a board has to make a decision involving that kind of money, it needs all of the relevant information it can possibly have in front of it. And I think one of our concerns and frustrations has been that even though the mayor had been involved in these negotiations, when it was presented to us for consideration, I believe we did lack significant information in order to make that decision. We didn't have the lease in front of us. We didn't know all the details of the lease. And whether there were 3 options available to us or 5 options available to us, I don't think we had significant information that was relevant to making that decision. So out of an abundance of caution, I think it would certainly serve this board well to look further at this issue and make sure that we are in fact making the best decision we possibly can with the funds entrusted to us in Clinton. So that's the only 2 points I'd like to make regarding that.
I will point out that after it was voted on, we only met one time in December. That left almost 30 days for any alderman to come up and say, I have a question, I have a problem, I have an issue. Can we sit down and talk about this? And no one did. So now you're looking at reversing, or trying to reverse, a 6-to-1 vote. And like Mike, I'm still waiting for the compelling reason. This is the information given to you. I don't know who that was. Yes, I do. Hang on a minute. That was me. I'm still looking for the compelling information or the compelling reason that would reverse a 6-to-1 vote, and I still haven't heard it. This is what I presented to you. I said nothing tonight that I didn't say a month ago. So I'm really confused about this. Go ahead, Mr. Brett.
Well, the way, it's perspective is interesting. And the way I look at it is when a company sets out to make a deal, that's what they set out for, is their best interest. And then you do what we did. We countered. The mayor had several different counters. And you come to a conclusion. That's usually how a business deal goes. So I was satisfied with that. Guaranteed money to me is always better than maybe guaranteed money. If I have if I have the way to look at something and say, well, I might could get this much, but they could also counsel on me, but if I do it this way, I absolutely am under contract to get this much, then I think with that in mind, I would take the contractually obligated money at any point in time. And that being said, even moreover, it's just like winning the lottery. You know, if they say, I'm going to give you an annuity for 20 years or I'll give you a lump sum, I'm pretty sure 80% of us in this room would take the lump sum right then, give me my money. You know, because I don't want to take any chances on that. So I thought we had enough information. We were given the options that were available to us, and we were told what went on in the background too, about going back and forth. We knew the other money was not contractually obligated. We knew we could lose it. So bearing on the side of knowing that we can get what we can get, we made deals with them to come up with this $272,000. Now we could have got more over time, but like I said, I lean toward the one lump sum payment. And I don't know that we need to, in my opinion, in my perspective, go back and relive something that, I mean, I think was pretty straightforward, and I was able to, with the knowledge I had, make a pretty good educated decision on, I think.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, so this is a question, I guess, for the entire board. Just giggles. In the first offer dated October 31st, which could have a 2057 contract end date with an initial 5-year term and then 4 additional terms of 5 years. Did anybody on this board think that those 4 additional 5-year terms were guaranteed money? Okay. So, to Alderwoman Garrett's point, and a point's well taken, the issue of not having the language of the existing lease in front of us might have been helpful, but the lease was made available to us. I didn't copy all 19 pages, but here are the most salient pages that indicate what I call the out provisions, what they have to do to get out of the lease. So to me, this option really was an option. The 2057 contract was just not potential. This afternoon, or actually this morning, I went back and thought, well, what would happen if we wanted to stay with the existing contract and roll the dice that the existing contract would be re-upped, even though in their initial letter they said they wouldn't. And through the amazing powers of Excel spreadsheets, I ran what the numbers would be for the next 15 years. Third option, fourth option, and fifth option, each of those options being 5 years. With a 3% escalator based off of current revenue, our grand total for the next 15 years of revenue would have been $347,711. That's with including the 3% increase. So by taking the $272,000 up front, what we've done is we've eliminated the risk of them canceling anytime during 15 years and left, which in my opinion is a reasonable risk, only $75,711 on the table for that 15-year period. To me, that is a sound business decision that the board made in the best interest of the city. We reduced risk and maximized the revenue that we could by doing that. So my follow-up question is that there were 6 of us who voted for this. If the lack of information was such a deal breaker today, why did we vote 6-1 to approve it in the first place? Why didn't we table this issue until we had all the information we needed? Or y'all needed. I felt comfortable with the information I had.
I'll address that and say that I did not think we had the information we needed, and that turned out that that was exactly right. I voted against it last time because I thought it was rushed and we did not have the information. And we gathered information after the meeting last night, and now we have the information to look at. We absolutely did not have the information or clear understanding of what we were doing, or at least I didn't at that time. And that was, from what I had perceived of it thus far, I didn't think it was a good deal. And really, when I saw the full information, I was just flabbergasted by the fact that the lack of information we had at the time the vote came up.
Again, I go back, what lack of information? I gave you the final negotiated amounts, all guaranteed versus not guaranteed. I mean, you can dream about this 2057, you kept harping on that last night. What happens if they cancel it in 2021? I don't think they're going to go. I mean, we've had this discussion. I think the reason they put it out there is because it's a great big number at the end that looks very attractive, that they're not going to, that they won't pay out because they're going to cancel prior to that. So, all right. Anybody have anything new to add? Nothing new to add. Do we have a motion?
Oh, motion to reconsider.
You've already
I guess it's
done
not
that.
the motion to reconsider.
You've already done that.
You do the motion to deny, is that the correct motion?
Deny the acceptance of whatever motion was to approve something, I think, last time. So-
Motion, yeah, the original motion and the original item on the table was vote to accept the item.
So to get this straight, if we vote to deny this, we're going to vote to go back into a contract that is not guaranteed, and instead of voting to take a contract that is absolutely guaranteed.
Or go back into negotiations, not necessarily just go back into a contract, but
But we
go
had
back into.
negotiations, didn't we?
You had a contract, we negotiated. I don't think they're going to come back and negotiate with us anymore. Business cue them aside. They're just going to say, too bad, so sad. and
Well, I mean,
walk
I just
away.
want to understand that, and to understand that if the board takes a position that we're going to go back into a contract that is absolutely not guaranteed, that they can give 90 days notice and get out of when they want to, I just don't see how that is prudent against a contract that has already been talked about, agreed upon, that is absolutely guaranteed.
Okay, do we have a motion?
That is not what the contract says. Every 5 years, they have the option to stop the contract. They cannot give 30 days notice.
Right,
Anytime they get out,
at the 5 year.
And their first time is
They're-
coming up in 2021.
They've still got, no, it's 2023. They've still got 3 years before they've got an option it would be year 16. They have an option to get out of it in year 11, year 16, and year 21. And year 16 comes up in 2023.
Okay,
So they've still
that's-
got that period of time. I've got to remember,
So that's an extra $3,000, $4,000.
you got to remember what we're talking about here is that cell tower behind what we call the old Kroger. Right there on the interstate, one of the highest
That's
points.
not what
That's
we're
not
talking
it.
about. If you
That's
go
not
back
it.
and read the original letter, the address is, and this is what we all were arguing about last night, it's on Spring Ridge Road. The address is 1005 Spring Ridge Road. It is not the water tower behind Kroger. That was spelled out in the letter that was sent out to us on the 31st, 1005 Spring Ridge Road. We're discussing an issue that we don't even know what the address of the cell tower is.
But that's what came up last night. There was talk about a water tower. That's the first we'd ever heard of that.
Read-
I don't think we
read
even
your
know what
letters.
we got.
We all had this information on December the 3rd.
Again, Jim, had you given me a heads up that you wanted to talk about this, I would have come to the meeting prepared to talk about it. When you started in, I just basically, well, I guess I showed the same, respect that you showed me. You could tell me that you were going to come in and want to talk about this. We could have had this entire discussion last night. But you chose not to tell me, and so now we're having it tonight. But the point is, you still could have called today to verify where the monopole is.
This is a cell tower, and if they choose to cancel it, I think somebody else would snap it up in a heartbeat.
And you're willing to-
I think we have very little risk in it. Is there some risk? Yes. But as Alderman Garrett said, they came in and offered a lot of money because they think this tower is going to be valuable for a good period of time. And I see as the key factor in that option of them extending it from 2036 to 2057.
It's not an option.
Is that they see that there is a long-term need for this cell tower. And again, I think we're selling it at a fire sale, distress sale, but we don't need to. Are there some risks there? Yes. But I think that a good, prudent business decision says that's a risk worth taking.
Option, the first, the 2057 is not on the table to discuss. The one after that is not on the table to discuss. The only one on the table to discuss is the one that I negotiated, giving us the guarantees.
Right, and that's what the problem is. We didn't have all of the options to discuss. You
That-
laid out that to us.
That's the
and we
only
voted on
option
it.
available because I negotiated it to that point.
We didn't authorize you to negotiate it that
I'm the
way.
mayor of the city. I'm negotiated by the authority of the mayor.
And
That's
we-
what happens. We've already had this discussion before.
And we can approve it or not. And if we disapprove your negotiation,
Well, I mean, again, and that's
that's what
absolutely,
this board's for.
and that's absolutely true. And, you know, I don't know, do we need to put it on the agenda next month and revote? Do we have a motion?
Motion to reject it.
Okay, there's a motion to reject the, I'll just call it the guaranteed option. Is that, everybody that knows what I'm talking about, the one that's guaranteed?
Whatever was on, what was on the agenda last time was the acceptance.
Right up there, contractually guaranteed.
Yeah, well,
So you're rejecting that, so that's what you're rejecting is the $272,000, and by saying nothing else, you're also rejecting option 2 and 3.
yeah, the motion was, the original motion was, in the last meeting, was to approve the acceptance of a one-time payment of $272,000 from American Tower for permanent easement for a cell phone tower located in the city.
Okay,
And if we're re-voting on that, we're making a motion to put that back on the table.
No, we're making a motion to deny.
To
I'm making a motion to deny. Come on.
And clarification from council. If this motion passes, where this is denied, we pull back from this contractually guaranteed amount, we revert back to the contract that's currently in place. The contract that, for the record, they've stipulated they have problems with, right?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so,
think-
so that guaranteed $272,000 is feasibly at risk.
Theoretically, if they walked away from the table over it, it would be. I think the correct motion as a point of clarification would be to rescind the previous action taken by the board, and then that would leave open the possibility of accepting one of the other alternatives on the table. So,
Okay.
but to your point, in speaking with the representatives, they have indicated that a modification to the current lease would be necessary for them to continue occupancy at that site.
And I'm assuming that when you say a modification to the lease, that's not going to be in the city's best interest.
Well, it would be one of the modifications they have suggested to us, either that initial modification or one of the ones we've subsequently negotiated.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. You'll start with Ward 6 and go the other way this time.
All right,
Jazz it up a little bit.
would you repeat the motion, please?
Motion to rescind.
Yes, sir.
This is a motion to rescind
Yes.
the previous.
So that means if you vote yes, you're voting to rescind it. If you vote no, you're basically voting to stay with the December 3rd or 7th.
Okay,
Correct.
And
And they will be open
All right.
to renegotiate this?
yes.
We can call them back, but they will probably hang up the phone.
That's the risk that you're taking.
That's the
Your
risk you're
risk is
taking.
$272,000.
Okay. Alderman Cashin.
No.
Alderwoman Cossack.
Yes.
Alderman Perret.
Nay.
Alderman Barnett.
No.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Ellis.
Yes.
Alderwoman Garrett.
Yes.
Okay, with the indulgence of the board,